Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, on this show, we try to feature as many stories as possible about how technology is transforming multiple industries, but also feature startup stories that will inspire and help other startup founders at various stages of their journey too. And today, I wanted to feature a tech startup story that highlighted a very important fact that we seldom talk about, even on this show, and that is that the solution isn't always as important as the problem. And also explore market testing your technology in your startup and the growing pains and the hurdles of managing funding, once you're lucky enough to get it, of course. So today's guests are from a company called PatientPop, which is a fast-growing healthcare technology startup right in the heart of Silicon Beach. And today's guest is a highly motivated, goal-focused and passionate entrepreneur with a successful track record of working with startup and early-stage companies, and has also participated in 2 successful exits. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to California so we can speak with Luke Kervin, founder and CEO of PatientPop. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Neil. My name is Luke Kervin, and I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of PatientPop. We're a healthcare technology company based in Santa Monica.
So for people that are hearing about PatientPop for the very first time, can you just paint a bit of a picture and help them visualize exactly what it is and the kind of problems that you guys solve?
Sure. PatientPop is a software as a service platform. We are the first practice growth platform for healthcare, and our mission is to help practices thrive. The way we do that is we help practices attract and retain patients for life. And really what we're doing is we've mapped out the patient journey. Every step of the patient journey, we have identified all of the points of friction, and we've built a platform to modernize each step of that journey in an effort to help bring patients into the practice.
So can you tell me a little bit more about how you guys are actually bringing people, process and technology together with at PatientPop? Because it seems to be that those days are the secret ingredients to making you guys successful.
Sure, absolutely. So we're approaching 400 employees at PatientPop. The one thing I'll say about our company is that we're very metrics driven. Every employee is working towards a target set of metrics or outcomes. And so to set goals at PatientPop, we use a system or a framework called OKRs. And this is a framework that we started using about 2 or 3 years ago. And the reason I like it is because it encourages a company, teams, and employees to set stretch goals. And one of the key features of OKRs is that they're not tied to compensation or performance reviews. So unlike other goal-setting frameworks, employees and teams often have an incentive to sandbag because their bonus and the performance review is tied to the attainment of those goals. And so what OKRs teach us is that we really should try to separate those two things. And so that's how we set goals at PatientPop. And then we use various technologies and systems to track and measure our goal attainment. But one of the key ones is Salesforce. We've built our entire business on Salesforce. Both our sales org and our customer success org is using Salesforce on a daily basis. And that's the platform that we use, amongst others, to track and report on our key metrics.
I'm curious how you got where you are today, though. So what's the tech startup story behind PatientPop and discovering that solution isn't always as important as the problem?
Exactly. So, I believe that the first step in creating a new business is to identify a huge must-solve problem. And the thinking is if you get the problem right, you'll have the opportunity to build a big business, even if the initial solution that you bring to market isn't the right solution. So it's really important to find a massive must-solve problem. And so before we started PatientPop, our previous business, ShopNation, had recently been acquired. And we had defined a simple set of criteria that we were looking for in our next business. So we said, number one, it has to be a large market. It has to be a massive market. You can't build a massive business in a small market, so it has to be large. Number two, it has to be a must-solve problem, right? We didn't want to build a nice-to-have product that was optional for a business. It had to be must-solve. So it had to be one of the key things that was keeping our prospective customers up at night. We were looking for a market that had no defined winners or that was highly fragmented. And we wanted a business model and market that commanded a high valuation multiple. So when we looked at subscription-based businesses, software as a service specifically, we noticed that valuations and multiples were much higher than what we were used to in the world of e-commerce. You're seeing 6, 8, 10, 12x revenue multiples, where in the world of e-commerce, you might be looking at a 1 or 2x. So we liked that about the subscription model. And then we were looking for a simple sales model, right? A really simple go-to-market strategy where we could build software, hire salespeople, and go into the market and sell it. So before we did any research and started thinking about the next opportunity, my business partner and I had written down that criteria, and we would judge and evaluate every opportunity we came across against that criteria. So that was step one. Then we got a little bit lucky. My wife happened to be pregnant at the time with my daughter, who just turned 5 yesterday. And so we were spending a lot of time in waiting rooms. And I was really shocked at how little technology these healthcare practices had adopted to improve the patient experience. So we experienced all kinds of issues: long wait times, rushed visits, poor customer service. We couldn't schedule an appointment online in 2013. I thought that was odd. And we couldn't pay a bill online. I can recall in 2013, I had to order a checkbook simply to pay a healthcare bill. And I thought that was very surprising. And then something terrible happened. They missed a critical test result. Information was not properly shared from one provider to another. It ended up getting caught by accident by her primary care provider. But had it not been caught, it would have caused major problems in her pregnancy. And so I went back to my business partner, Travis, and I said, I think I know what we're going to do next. We're going to build a platform to quarterback pregnancies. And so off we went into the market. We interviewed about 10 OBGYNs in the LA area. We wanted to learn more about this opportunity if they shared the same passion for solving this problem. And when we went out to interview them, we actually learned that there was a much bigger problem at hand. Every independent practice that we talked to said the exact same thing. In 2013, they were struggling to survive. Many of them were earning less than they had in the past due to changes in reimbursement models. And some of them were even considering selling their practice to one of these larger health systems or hospital groups because they were struggling. And the second thing we learned was that every practice, every doctor, whether they were 35 or 65 years old, they all recognized that the front door of their practice was moving online. And they were scrambling to figure out a strategy. And so what most of these practices had done is they had cobbled together what we call a piecemeal solution. It's the guy down the street built them a website. They're working with a vendor for online scheduling. They're working with a different vendor to do email marketing. They're working with a consultant to do SEO. They're really concerned about their online reputation, so they're spending advertising dollars on Yelp because they think that will help. Maybe they have someone coming into their office to do social media. And so it was really a hodgepodge of different services and vendors that they had cobbled together to try to solve the solution. And what we learned was that they were spending a lot of money. They were spending a lot of time managing all of these vendors, and they really couldn't tell whether it was working or not. And in most cases, it wasn't working when we really looked into it, because a lot of these solutions were not designed for healthcare. And these solutions were not designed to work together. And most of them were horizontal platforms. So they had really, they were not tailored at all to healthcare. And so Travis and myself asked ourselves, what would we do given our background in e-commerce marketing? So we had previously built 2 businesses in e-commerce marketing. What would we do to solve this problem? And we envisioned what we call a practice growth platform. And really what it is, it's an e-commerce platform for healthcare. It's designed to drive transactions online, which in this case are new patients, to manage the purchase funnel, which in this case is the patient journey, and to bring patients back when the time is right. So to retain them or recall them and bring them back into the business. And so that was the original vision for the business. We got started in 2014, and we saw a really incredible product market fit right out of the gate.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how life puts you in the right place at the right time. I mean, you're there with your pregnant wife and the inspiration hit you. It's almost like the universe gives you a little nudge in the right direction sometimes, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So for any startup founders listening, can you offer any advice on market testing their technology before actually getting it out there?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm a huge believer in validating as cheaply, cost effectively, and efficiently as possible. You really want to try to test your idea really quickly and not spend a lot of money and not make a big investment to determine, can this be a big business or not? So I'll give you a couple examples. So our previous business, prior to PatientPop, we had started a business called Shop Nation, which was an e-commerce marketing platform. And with our initial product there, we went out and we interviewed a bunch of consumers. We wanted to find out, would they use this e-commerce tool that we were building to shop online? And we sat down, we went to a couple of universities and we had them use the actual prototype and we collected feedback. And just about every student that we talked to told us they loved it and that they would absolutely use it. But when we launched it, we saw very little traction. And what we learned there was, if you as a founder are going out and you're asking someone to test something, you certainly don't want to ask friends or family members. But even if you're asking a stranger and they know the context that you're a founder and this is a product that you're building, they're probably going to give you positive feedback and you're going to have a false positive. And so when we started PatientPop, rather than going out and interviewing and asking for feedback, we did a little bit of that initially. But what we really wanted to do was test selling the product or testing the product in a real life context. So when we brought it to market initially, we designed a website, we designed a brochure, and we printed 2 business cards for myself and my partner. We called ourselves sales reps. We called around town and we scheduled demos with doctors. We told them we had software that would help them grow their practice. And we went in and we pitched the product as though it existed and we showed screenshots. We didn't tell them that we were founders. We didn't tell them this was a new business. We really wanted to test if the market would spend, $400, $500, $600 a month on a practice growth platform to attract and retain patients. And through that test, we signed up the first 9 out of 9 doctors that we pitched, and we knew that we were onto something.
Now, for many founders listening as well, they're more than aware that they're sometimes guilty of throwing everything into funding. And then when they get there, they encounter a whole range of new challenges. So what are the hurdles of managing funding once you're lucky enough to get it?
To be honest, we've never really experienced challenges related to funding because, you really don't want to raise capital in the first place unless you know how you're going to use it.
Yeah.
So you want to have a very clearly defined operating plan going into your year where you know exactly how much capital you require and how you're going to put it to work, right? And as you project that out over a couple of years, that gives you an idea of how much capital you need to raise. Now, we did something that's not common. We hired a CFO as our 5th or 6th hire. We hired a CFO before we had any real revenue. And that was because Travis and myself, my partner and I, were coming into software as a service. We had very little experience selling software. In our previous 2 businesses, we had built e-commerce marketing platforms, and we wanted to have an expert that understood software businesses. And we thought it made sense to have a CEO in early to help us build out the model, to project how much capital we would require, and to play a key role in raising that capital and then managing it.
Now, PatientPop recently announced that its practice growth solution now supports Amazon Alexa search, which will actually allow patients to find their providers by simply asking Alexa using their voice. What kind of feedback have you received on this?
So one of our core promises to our customers, when they're paying us $500 or $600 a month, our core promise to them is that they're subscribing to continuous innovation. That's really the idea behind software as a service. You pay a monthly fee, and you subscribe to a platform that's shared across a base of customers. And the software as a service business is continually updating, often on a weekly basis, the software to ensure that customers have the latest and greatest software serving their business. And so in line with that, we're always looking for the next opportunity, the latest technologies to incorporate into our platform to help our practices thrive, attract and retain patients. And we recognize that voice search is going to be a very significant, or represent a very significant of searches in the future. In fact, ComScore had reported that they believe by 2020, 50% of all searches will be voice searches. And so we thought it made sense to get ahead of the curve for our customers and to integrate voice search into our platform. Now, we're seeing, to be honest, relatively, we're not seeing a ton of traffic to date, but that's expected. We know that it's coming, and so we wanted to be one of the first players in this market to offer it to our customer base.
So here we are at the beginning of a new year with new opportunities on the horizon. So what will 2019 have in store for PatientPop? Is there anything you can share with us today about your vision for this year and beyond?
So we recently raised another round of funding, bringing our total amount raised to $75 million. This year, you'll see us make a very significant investment in R&D. We're doubling the size of our technology team, and also in continuing to scale the business. Our vision from day one was to scale from 1 to 100 million in recurring revenue in 5 years. That's the end of 2020, and we're on that path today.
Now, you guys have been on a fantastic journey. If anybody listening today and your words have really resonated with them, what's the best way that they can find you online and also contact a member of your team if they've got any additional questions after listening to our conversation today?
Sure. So we have a general email address, info@patientpop.com. And the platform that I'm most active on is LinkedIn, and you can find me there.
Excellent. Well, I'll add those links to the show notes just so people can get hold of you or your team nice and easily. But I think you've been on a fantastic journey, and so many points that you raised today will be incredibly valuable to other startup founders and other business leaders listening. So a big thank you for coming on and sharing that story with me today.
Happy to do it. Thanks, Neil.
PatientPop is the only complete practice growth solution. And by enhancing and automating each touch point in that patient journey, from first impression online to digital booking to post-visit follow-up, I love how PatientPop is actually trying to make it easier for healthcare providers to attract more patients, manage their online reputation, modernise their patient experience, and automate the front office. And they are just a few of the huge problems that healthcare professionals have been battling for many months, even years. They're not just throwaway lines. They take a lot of work and a lot of organisation and even more investment to try and navigate over those hurdles. So make no mistake, what PatientPop are actually doing here is no easy feat. So a big thank you for Luke for coming on the show today and also passing on some advice which I think will be invaluable to other startup founders. And what a great example of how to leverage technology to solve real problems. And that's so refreshing just a few weeks after CES. But now it's time for me to open my door. So you can email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, get me on Instagram at Neil C. Hughes too. Say hello, pull up a chair and chat the breeze with your friendly podcast host. And if you find yourself in Arizona next week, I'm at the GPEC event and you're more than welcome to meet me for a hot coffee or a cold beer. However, you've got a few things that you need to do, as have I. So I tell you what, let's go our separate ways and promise to meet each other in the same time and the same place tomorrow. And I'll bring another guest along for a friendly chat. How does that sound? Good answer. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.